Hi all, I welcome you all to the next lecture today. Here Professor Ravi Kumar, School of Mechanical Engineering, Shastra Deemed to be University. So today I'm going to give you an overview of various types of engines used in the aircrafts. So here you will be introduced to the engines starting from way back in 1907, the Wright brothers' first successful flight, and till the engines which we are using in the modern aircrafts, civilian as well as in fighter aircrafts. So prior to this lecture, you have been given a detailed exposure about various components of aircrafts, and in previous lecture we have covered the various types of materials that can be used for the aircraft component manufacturing, and also you have seen clearly about the construction of fuselage and wing. Right there you have covered various kind of design philosophy, field shape and shape life design. All right, there you have been introduced about the monocoque and semi monocoque kind of construction that we are basically using for the fuselage construction. Finally, you have seen the how loads are getting transferred from the aircraft skin to the fuselage, and the various kind of forces that will come in effect when aircraft will be in operation. So let's start our journey of different kind of aircraft engine today. So today agenda is basically we are going to cover the basic definitions of the engine. Then we look at the working principle of piston engine, then followed by the turbojet engine, and important addition to the turbojet engine is afterburning that we will cover today. Right, so today agenda basically in today's lecture we are going to cover these 3 points, right? Piston engine starting, and then turbojet engine working principle and afterburning. All right, and with this I will be closing the today's lecture. In the next lecture these remaining 4 points we will be covering, where we will be talking about thrust vectoring, right? Turboprop engine, turbofan engine, turboshaft engine, pulse jet, and ramjet and scramjet. Particularly, you might have heard about the hypersonic flight, right? That is only possible with the scramjet technology, and still at present, scramjet technology is under research and development. Some testings have been done, but still a sustained flight we are not able to get. But in coming future, definitely we will succeed in this. All right, but ramjet engine and pulsejet engine already been used, and we are using these in uh, particularly in experimental aircrafts, right? So today agenda basically we'll see what is an engine, and then we'll go for basic piston engine configuration, then the piston engine which we are using in the aircraft, then we'll look at the turbojet engine and afterburning. Right, let's start our journey today. So if we look at the propulsion devices, or we can say the engine, so from thermodynamic point of view, if you are defining an engine, engine is something which can supply a continuous work by taking in certain quantity of heat. So whatever heat you are supplying, right, it can effectively convert that into mechanical work, that is known as engine, and it operates in a cycle. So aircraft basically are the air breathing engines, right, which requires oxygen for its combustion, right? So the propulsion device is particularly divided into two main categories, right? One is air breathing and is called non-air breathing, right? Non-air breathing engines are those which do not require external oxygen to carry out the combustion. So that means what, then where will be the oxygen? Because without oxygen you cannot accomplish the combustion. So in the case of non-air breathing engine, particularly rockets, right, that carry propellant, a propellant itself will have oxidizer and your fuel separately. When those will both oxidizer and fuel will react and combustion will happen, right? So particularly for space exploration, we require non-air breathing engines, because when we are going in outer space, right, sufficient oxygen may not be available to carry out the combustion. So in that case, particularly we look for the non-air breathing engines whose performance does not depend on the atmospheric conditions, right? So those are known as non-air breathing engines. But today our agenda of discussion is air breathing engines, right? Particularly which requires atmospheric air to carry out its combustion, right? So air breathing engine, basic fundamental engine start with the piston engine, piston a kind of configuration, piston cylinder arrangement. Then came as gas turbine and then ramjet engines, right? So what is the gas turbine engine? Particularly, mostly in the aircraft application, we use the gas turbine engines. What does it do? It utilizes the high temperature gases to power a propeller or to produce directly thrust by expanding and accelerating the exhaust gases through nozzle. So there are three types of gas turbine engines: turbojet, turbofan, and turboprop. Right, turboprop. So let's start with the basic piston engine. So if we look at the basic piston engine cut section, it will be look like this. So if you just focus over that, this complete thing, right, is known as cylinder, right? And this is the cylinder head. This is known as cylinder head. Basically, over the cylinder head, you will find these two kind of things. These are known as valves, basically valves. When you are talking about the spark ignition engine, particularly which is having spark plug installed here, then it will be valves, right? If there is no spark plug, directly fuel injector is there and we are utilizing it and to carry out the combustion, then these will be ports, right? Here these are the valves. This is a inlet valve, this is the exhaust valve, right? And if you come here, right, this is the spacing, right, left when piston is at the top most position, right? Here this much spacing is there. This spacing is known as combustion volume, right, where combustion will take place. All right, and this is the position of top dead center, right? So that means piston is at the top, so it will be traveling from top dead center to the bottom dead center. So here is the another line. Up to this point it will be traveling, so piston will move between these two limits, right, top dead center and bottom dead center. And if you look at the piston, these kind of horizontal lines you are able to see, these are nothing but the cylinder piston rings. What is the purpose of piston rings? To provide the lubrication, right? Where because piston used to travel, all right, inside the cylinder, so due to the rubbing motion, right, between the cylinder wall and the piston, chances of frictional losses will be more. To avoid those, we need to provide the lubrication. For that purpose, these piston rings used to be attached right around the circumference. And if you look at this piston will be connected to the crankshaft. This is the crankshaft, right, which will be directly coupled with your wheel. In the case of automobiles, right, it will be rotating the wheels, or you can couple this with a generator to create the electrical energy particularly, right? So this is the crankshaft, and crankshaft is connected to the piston by a connecting rod. So this is the connecting rod basically by which it will be connected to the crankshaft. All right. So this is complete combination is called crankshaft. This is the position of crankshaft, and this complete casing, this casing you are seeing, this is called crankcase. So within that it will be rotating, right? Within this it will be rotating. It's called crankcase. So if you come here, this kind of things you are seeing, right? This fork kind of structure. This is nothing but fins, right? Because engine need to be cooled. So this is the air cooled configuration, right? Air cooled configuration. So it is a small power generation, engine. It will be air cooled. If it is a large, power generating piston engine, then it will be requiring water cooled. So water jackets will be attached, right, all around to provide the cooling. But this is a small, capacity engine, right? In that case, it is the air cooled configuration, right? This is the spark plug, right, which is required to initiate the combustion, right, of the mixture. So here fuel and air mixture will come, it will get compressed in this zone, right, particularly this region, and the moment when piston reaches at the top dead center, a spark will generate the a spark plug will generate the spark and your ignition starts. Once ignition start, within this small volume, pressure rises and due to increase in pressure, piston moves down, and when piston moves down, crankshaft rotates, and that is directly coupled with the wheel, and wheel will start moving. So this is the basic, fundamental, uh, working of a piston engine particularly, and these are the various components of the piston engine. But aircraft, particularly aircraft application, we do need uh, more cylinders, right? There's a single cylinder, particularly here the single cylinder configuration. Single cylinder is having these many parts, right? The piston and piston, crankshaft and crankcase, these all are spark plug and two valves. But when we go for high power requirement, particularly in the aircraft, we do need multi-cylinder engine particularly. So, and those cylinders will be arranged in various configurations. So what are the different configuration of piston engines? They can be arranged in various configuration, as I said. So if we look at the first, that is called inline. This is the inline arrangement. Second is called V type, right? Inline, they will be in along the in a same line, right? Two cylinders will be arranged in a same line, and piston will be traveling independently, and firing will also occur independently within the cylinder. And these are the B line engine, right, where cylinders are arranged in a shape of V for victory, right? V shape they are arranged, and both the pistons which are traveling in the cylinder will be connected to the single crankshaft, right? There is a single crankshaft. Similarly, here, particularly in inline arrangement, there are two cylinders, right, which will be in that piston will be traveling like this, but they will be sharing the rotation energy with a single crankshaft. So, single crankshaft is here, this is a flywheel, right, and this is the cylinders are like this, the pistons are traveling in this direction, right, and transferring the motion to this crankshaft, and crankshaft is connected to the flywheel. So basically, the inline and the V engines are very similar to those which are used in the automobiles, particularly this configuration we are using the automobile industry. The third configuration is horizontally opposed, right? Where you look at the cylinders, these are the cylinders, right? Those are opposed. So one piston is attached here. These are the two valves. So you look at configuration of valves here also. These are the valves, right? Valves position, and piston will be traveling like this and like this, right? And they will be sharing motion to a single crankshaft. So horizontally opposed engines are the third major configuration, right? These can be considered an extreme example of the V engine. This is the V engine. The extreme example of it is horizontally opposed engine, in which pistons are at 180-degree apart, right? Basically, one piston is here and another piston is here, so 180-degree apart. And cylinder, basically look at the orientation of cylinders, right? Cylinders lie on a plane roughly parallel to the wings, right? So if you attach this, they will become in parallel to the wings. The next one, much more famous configuration is basically the radial engine. If you look at this configuration, right, so this is the position of crankshaft, right, to which your propeller is attached, and these are all cylinders are arranged radially, right, all around the circumference. Your cylinders are arranged. So radial configuration particularly is unique to the aviation. Here the crankshaft is in the circular centerpiece of the engine. So crankshaft is here as the centerpiece particularly, and the cylinders radiate out from it in a plane perpendicular to the particularly crankshaft. So perpendicular to this, these all cylinders are radiating out. Right. So these are the various configuration. Apart from that, another much more configuration was also available. That is particularly rotary engine, in which engine block basically rotates about a fixed crankshaft. That this complete engine block particularly was rotating about a single crankshaft. So most of the early engines, early aircrafts, particularly up to the World War I, used this kind of configuration, either horizontally opposed or a radial kind of configuration for the piston arrangements. So if you take this one example of famous aircraft, right? That is called PZL, right? PZL is nothing but name is given here, Penstowe Jack Lady Losing J. It is a Poland company, right? Name the meaning of it is State Aviation Works, right? It is a Poland based company, aircraft manufacturing company, which has developed an engine, right? Particularly, and engine configuration was the radial one. So engine was in-housed at the nose, and the crankshaft is coupled with these propellers, right? So PZ piston engine, 9 cylinder, and the maximum capacity was the 1000 horsepower. That much is power it can be able to generate. And the first time it was installed in the Antonov AN2. This is the aircraft. The name is Antonov AN2, which was having four propellers. Right, you look at here, four blades, variable pitch propeller. Right, the maximum speed was 139 knot at which it was operating, and the maximum altitude up to which it was able to fly is 13,000 feet approximately. So this was one of the most famous aircraft of early 1930s. So what are the various differences between the piston engines which are used in the aircraft and the ordinary engine which we are using, the car engine? So as we know that in aircraft, piston engine usually contains more cylinders, right? But here in car, basically we need a less number of cylinders. All right, that's the one thing. And another one main difference between the piston engine which we are using the aircraft and in the car engine is, we in the aircraft we always bother about the thrust, high thrust to weight ratio. So particularly when you compare the weight per power will be low in aircraft engine compared to the automobile engine. An automobile engine weight per unit power will be more compared to the aircraft engine, where we basically need lightweight aircrafts and lightweight engines to be installed in the aircraft, right? So if we look at the crankshaft also, right? So crankshaft in an piston aircraft engine turns a propeller, right? But in the car, it will turn what, your flywheel or wheel particularly. So it will be connected to the wheel in the case of car, and it's connected to a propeller in the case of an aircraft engine. So second parameter already I covered, weight. We always look for lightweight engine, right? Particularly in the aircraft operation, but in the automobile application particularly, weight is the secondary criteria. Here we do need for more power, right? Power demand to run the engine, particularly piston aircraft engine, demands high power for a very long time compared to the aircraft engine, compared to the car engine. And if we look at the number of engine parts, right, particularly an aircraft engine has at least two sets of every parts, right? Like if we are having two cylinders, right, particularly, so do we need, we basically need two spark plugs, right? And both these spark plugs will be operating independently. Similarly, magnetos for each spark plug, we need a separate magnetos, and fuel pumps also will be more than one in the case of an aircraft engine compared to the car engine. And car engine will be only having one set. So particularly aircraft engine, we do need two spark plugs, right, fired independently from engine driven magnetos. Many aircraft engine systems also incorporate an additional fuel pump, right, that is electrically driven and independent of the engine. Another thing, the operating environment, if you compare between the aircraft engine and the car engine, right, car used to travel on the ground, right, so where if you look at the atmospheric condition will be almost, constant, but aircraft used to fly at various altitude and wide range of mass flow rate, right. So it as since our aircraft used to operate on wide range of altitudes, aircraft engine has a manual mixture control, right, particularly about fuel control, particularly we are talking about. So manual mixture control used to be installed in the aircraft engine. So at low altitude, basically the mixture is set relatively rich. Fuel mixture is basically rich. When we talk about rich mixture, means we do have more fuel compared to the air, right. So when we are traveling at low altitude, right, where air is having a very dense zone, and to accelerate through the air we need high power. To generate the high power we need to spend more fuel. So engine used to set at the rich condition, fuel rich condition, and when it is flying at high altitude where air is not that much dense, it has to be set at lean side. So lean side means more air compared to the fuel. But during the continuous climb, particularly, we need large power, right? In that case, pilot also will have to set the fuel mixture at a rich condition to provide sufficient engine cooling, because at the time of continuous climb we are requiring high power and we do need to, you know uh, burn larger amount of fuel in the combustion chamber. So in that case temperature may exceed. To control the temperature, you know to reach at the critical limit set by the material consideration, the material which we are using, to control the temperature below the maximum possible temperature within the combustion chamber, we require cooling. And for that purpose, if we are using the rich mixture, then there will be a excess fuel compared to what is required for the combustion. So the excess fuel will provide the cooling, right, and our maximum possible temperature generator will be well below the temperature set by the material consideration. However, running too rich condition can result in a loss of power and premature spark plug falling. Therefore, many airplanes are equipped with an exhaust gas temperature gauge that will definitely, by looking at that gauge, pilot can decide how to control the mixture accurately, right. So exhaust gas temperature gauge used to be attached in the airplane that will tell basically how much cooling is required, right, particularly for the exhaust gases which are coming out from the engine. So as per the demand, right, the pilot will set the mixture accurately up to that limit. It may be a fuel rich region or fuel less region, that is called lean region. And also particularly when we are talking about the aircraft piston engine, it will require carburetor as well. So when our aircraft is flying at higher altitude or during the rainy season or heavy clouds, particularly where the outside temperature is below the freezing point of the water, so what will happen in that case, chances of icing in the carburetor will happen. To avoid that, uh, particularly in the aircraft, a carburetor heat control unit is to be attached. And what the purpose of carburetor heat unit is, basically when it is on position, the control provides heated air to the carburetor in order to avoid ice buildup, right. So that hot air, basically, which is being supplied by the what we say carburetor heated control unit, basically taken from the engine exhaust and reverse to the carburetor to avoid any kind of ice buildup on the carburetor. Another thing is that to provide the cooling particularly to the engine, In the case of aircraft, we do not provide any kind of water jacketing, because water jacketing will not be effective in the aircraft, because aircraft used to fly at high altitude. So chances of freezing of that water will be more. To so avoid that kind of conditions, we do not need radiators, right? Instead of radiator, we use the air cooling, right? Air cooling, particularly in the aircraft. Radiators used to be used in the car only. In car, you may find radiator, right? Or land-based vehicle will be utilizing the radiator for providing the cooling. So that's the basic difference. And another thing, when aircraft is flying at high altitude, where outside air density is not sufficient, when that is the case, our aircraft may not be able to suck the sufficient amount of air required for the combustion. So in that case, some aircraft used to be attached with additional rotary component that is called turbocharger. So turbocharger, what it will do, it will basically help in taking in sufficient amount of air inside the engine. But when we are testing the turbocharger, it will also invite the weight penalty to the aircraft, and as well as the cost. So cost may be slightly higher compared to the non-turbocharged aircraft engine. So these are the basic difference between the piston engines used in the aircraft and in the car engines. So, so if we look at the configuration, particularly in the engine, as I said, that engine crankshaft will be connected to the propeller. So, the engine which we are using in the aircraft will be the piston propeller aircraft, uh, that that we used to say, or piston propeller engine. So, what are the advantages? It is very efficient for low speed flight, right? Lower load capacity compared to the similar sized jet powered aircraft, consumes less fuel, thus cheaper and more economical than the jet engines. Particularly if you look at the operation of that engine, is for piston propeller is quite, and but fly at lower speed. That is the disadvantage for the piston propeller engine. The best option for the people who need to transport a few passenger and or a small amount of cargo, right? For that, we can select the piston propeller engine. Particularly propellers are not used on high speed aircraft, right? Particularly for high speed, we need to go for the jet engines. Altitude limitations are there with this kind of engines. We cannot go at a speed higher than the 500 km per hour, because when we are crossing that, chances of stalling of the air at the tip of the propeller will happen, and that is going to happen. There will be sudden loss of power. Turbocharging is required, right, at higher altitude, particularly, right? So that is another big drawback with this kind of piston engine aircrafts, right? But piston engine aircrafts are basically suitable for low altitude and low speed flights, right? Or you can say general aviation aircraft, right? They are using this configuration even today, and they are well known for flying at low altitude and at low speeds. Next one is turbojet, right? So the World War II was the turning point, particularly in the development of the gas turbine engines. All right. So if we look at the gas turbine engines, the World War II basically has given a biggest contribution in the development of the turbojet engines. The first time this jet technology was shown to the world by the Germany, and the application of this concept was on the pulse jet engine, right? That is German V2 bomber. And by looking at German V2 bomber, USA started work on this project, and finally they come up with the advanced fighter jet installed with the turbojet engines turbojet engines. So let's see at the history of the turbojet, when it was invented and now at what position we are. So if we look at the history of the turbojet engine particularly, or you can say the propulsion, in 1931 the first turbojet engine designed by Sir Frank Whittle. So he is a basically engine specialist, and he designed the first turbojet engine way back in 1930s, and that's why the Sir Frank Whittle is known as the father of the jet technology. Father of the jet technology. So in 1939, the first jet aircraft known as Henkel HE-178 was developed in England and Germany. In 1943, the first jet fighter aircraft Messerschmitt Me 262 went into service in German Luftwaffe. This is the historical picture, particularly taken from the book, right? Pratt and Whitney J58 turbojet engine, right? So this is a Pratt and Whitney is a famous, company which used to generate which used to manufacture the engines, right? Pratt and Whitney. This was much famous, the jet engine which was used in early 1975. 1944, after World War II and till today, airplanes used jet engines to generate thrust. Jet engines, also referred to with the gas turbine engines, various types are there: turbojet, turboprop, turboshaft, turbofan, ramjet, and scramjet. So if we look at the achievements, right, as history gone on, Messerschmitt Me 262 is the first was the first operational jet powered aircraft. German B-1 bomber that actually worked on the pulse jet engine was the first application for military purposes. Bell B-59 is the first American aircraft, and MiG-15 the first Soviet Union jet aircraft that were developed after the World War II. So if we look at the basic parts, right, of a turbojet engine, right. So turbojet are the oldest kind of general purpose jet engine. Turbojets are rotary engine, particularly if you look at all the components which are rotary about a single shaft. There is a shaft about that they will be rotating. They produce thrust by increasing the velocity of air flowing through the engine and operate on Newton's third law of motion. So if we look at the cut section of the jet engine, it will be something like this, right? Air will come from this side. This is the fresh air. This is the inlet through which air will come inside. Then it undergo compression. This is the compression stage or compressor. Right? Look at this area is decreasing, right? Particularly. So along the length of the flow, your length of blades are keep on decreasing, right? This on decreasing. So this is the compression stage, and after that it enters into the combustion chambers. So there are two combustion chamber, and these are arranged around the circumference. So from this side air comes in, fuel is coming from fuel injector. They will start burning inside these cans. Finally, this high temperature gases, right, comes over the turbine blades. These are the turbine, and turbine, if you look at turbine, is directly coupled with the compressor. So turbine will operate or rotate the compressor, right, and turbine rotates and it will generate sufficient amount of mechanical work which is required to run the compressor. Then rest of the exhaust gases will come into the nozzle and leave the nozzle at very high velocity. So as per the Newton's third law of motion, a reaction generates, that is called thrust. So the total components, right, of jet engines, you can say it requires the intake, right, followed by the compressor, right, combustion chamber, right, turbine, and exhaust, right. So total there are basically five components, right. Air intake is needed, followed by compressor, combustion chamber, turbine, and nozzle. So if you look at the working principle, particularly air is drawn, right? Air is drawn into the rotating compressor. This is a rotary compressor by the intake and is compressed to higher pressure before entering into the combustion chamber. Then inside this combustion chamber, highly pressurized air enters and fuel is mixed with it and ignited by the flame holders. The flame holders are there by which it will ignite, and you look at these holes, right? The small holes are there through which eddies will be generated. Why eddies are generated? To sustain the flame, right? Eddies will be generated and to ascertain the complete combustion of fuel. And once combustion starts, high temperature gases generates, and the high temperature gases right, enter into the turbine stages. These are the turbine blades, and turbine rotates where partial expansion of the hot gases take place, and mechanical work generated by the turbine will be utilized to run the compressor, right? And rest of the high temperature gases exhaust through the nozzle at very high velocity. As a result, we get the thrust. So this is the normal working operation of a jet engine. So if you look at the component wise, right, if you look at the air intake, that will be something like this. If you look at the front side of an engine, it will be look like this, right? And this is the spiral, right? When it rotates, you will be able to see this. So this is the intake, right, through which air enters. So air intakes purpose is to bring the large amount of surrounding air into the engine. Usually it will be a tube shaped inlet like one you are seeing here, right? And sometimes it may be conical, right, or completely cylindrical one. Inlet come in many shapes, right, and size depending on the aircrafts, right? Maybe conical, right, or it may be a inline or a, inclined inlet. In fighter aircrafts particularly, you will see the intake, different kind of intake configurations are available. Second is compressor, right? We require rotary compressor particularly. So rotary compressor will have a shaft, right? Common shaft over which blades will be attached. Particularly, we use no basically, yeah. There are two kind of blades, particularly profile blade and airfoil blades. And we require airfoil blades, particularly in the case of axial flow compressors. So axial flow compressors, particularly airfoil blades, will be attached over this shaft, particularly, or you can say hub. This is the completely hub portion over which blades are attached. These are known as rotary blades. And if you look at this engine casing, over engine casing there will be a stationary rows of blades, right? Stationary rows of blades, right? And so one combination, one row of stationary blade and one row of rotary blade is known as single stage. So there may be n number of stages, right? But depending on the required pressure ratio, how much you require. Based on that, you can select the number of stages used. All right. So they will be. If you look at the corresponding length along the flow direction, will keep on decreasing to provide the necessary compression for the incoming air. This is the combustion chamber, right? Particularly, if you look at the shape of the combustion chamber, it will be look like a cane. It's a cane. This is a compressor, right, through which compressed air enters into the combustion chamber. Here, fuel will burn, right, by mixing with the air, right. Then high temperature gases goes through the turbine inlet, right, impinge over the turbine blades. Turbine rotates, right, and generate the mechanical work which is required to run the compressor, and then it's enter into the jet pipe and exhausted through the nozzle, right, exhausted through the nozzle. So if we look at the turbine particularly, hot gases leaving the combustor are allowed to expand through the turbine, and turbines are usually made up of high temperature metals such as inconel or nickel alloy, right? Because these will be subjected to very very high temperature environment. These are the blades of turbines over which hot temperature gases will strike and they will rotate and you will generate a mechanical work. Almost two-thirds of all the power generated by the burning fuel is used by the compressor to compress the air for the engine. If you look at the nozzle section, right, after the turbine, the gases are allowed to expand through the nozzle to atmospheric pressure, produces high velocity jet, and due to which you get the thrust. So in a conversion nozzle, the ducting narrows progressively. This is a conversion nozzle, right, where areas keep on decreasing along the flow direction. So when that is happening, the velocity by which flow leaves from here will be very very high. But in some of the modern aircrafts, right, you may find the uh, nozzle which can adjust its shape as per the requirement. So it can be sometime divergent and sometime it will be convergent based on the requirement of the speed. If you look at the afterburner, as I said, due to the material consideration, particularly turbine blades, at present, whatever materials we are using, we cannot cross a certain threshold value of temperature in the combustion chamber. That value is 1600 degree 1600 Kelvin. Sorry, 1600 Kelvin. So that is the maximum possible temperature that can be generated within the combustion chamber, right? To be entered into the turbine stage because of the turbine blade material consideration. So, whatever fuel you are sending in the combustion chamber will not be able to burn completely because of this limitation. Because we have to maintain uniform temperature when it's entering into the turbine stage, and the temperature should be within the range of 1600 Kelvin, 1600 Kelvin. So the exhaust gases which are coming in the turbine stage will have sufficient oxygen still further to support the combustion. So immediately after the turbine, right, further combustion of the exhaust gases can be possible because it is having certain amount of, means excess amount of oxygen air present, because complete air has not burned in the combustion chamber because of the material maximum possible temperature of the material point of view. So still it is having oxygen to support further combustion. So in the downstream, after the turbine, some fuel can be injected right in the jet pipe, and further combustion is also possible. So look at here, this is the turbine stage. This is the turbine stage. So after the turbine stage, this portion is called jet pipe, where extra flow holders are attached, and these are the fuel lines, right, to, or those will be connected to the fuel injector. So extra fuel can be injected in the jet pipe and further combustion is possible, right? So in some of the turbojet engines, this kind of configuration is also possible, that is called afterburner, and this will be operating for a shorter period of time because we cannot operate it for a longer period of time, because here what will happen when we are operating it, space fuel consumption of the engine will increase drastically, right? Because we are simply injecting the fuel inside the jet pipe and we are burning it already. First combustion already happened in the combustion chamber, and it is a additional combustion which you have done in the jet pipe. So space fuel consumption will rise drastically, but this extra combustion right in the jet pipe will enhance the lift, sorry, thrust significantly. So if we want a random increase in thrust, particularly in the during the takeoff, we can utilize the afterburning. So an afterburner or reheat jet pipe is a device added to the rear of the jet engine. It provides a means of spraying fuel directly into the hot exhaust, right, where it ignites and boosts the thrust significantly. Drawback is very high specific fuel consumption, right? Fuel consumption is more. That's why we do operate the afterburner for a shorter period of time. What are the advantages, right, and disadvantages of the jet engine? Let's see one by one. So first advantage is it is having very high power to weight ratio. If you look at the design, it is a compact design than most of the reciprocating kind of engines for the same power output. It is having fewer moving parts than the reciprocating engine, because reciprocating engine particularly vibration issues are more, because their reciprocating parts are there, and when they are continuously operating, vibration issues will be more, right? But here all parts are rotary, so vibration issues are less. Low operating pressures, right, and also requires shorter landing gears, right? High operation speeds, right, it can cross 800 kilometers per hour. Low lubricating oil cost and combustion, it doesn't require any kind of lubrication in the parts. Particularly afterburner can be installed to enhance the thrust, that is not possible with the piston engine aircraft. What are the demerits? Fuel economy at lower speed is very poor, so this is not suitable for low speed operation. Longer startup than the reciprocating engine, it requires larger startup time, right? Less responsive to the changes in power demand compared to the reciprocating engine. right? And it is noisy, particularly it is very very noisy because the exhaust gas temperature will be very very high, several times higher than the piston engine exhaust gases temperature. And when that high temperature gases are going to mix with the cold atmospheric air, it creates very very loud sound, and because of that operation is noisy in the case of jet engine. So with this, I'm closing the today's discussion. Right? If you are having any doubt in the current topic, you can write in the comment section, or you can directly approach to me via WhatsApp. Already I shared with you. Right. So in the next class, we will cover the rest to 4 points. Right? We will go to turboprop, then turbofan, turboshaft, and finally go to the advanced air breathing engines, ramjet and scramjet. So for today, this much is enough. See you all in the next class. Have a nice day. Good day.